No one is ever prepared for the moment Bill sees the truth as a fracture running straight through the frame of his life. It doesn't arrive like a punch to the face, but as that skin-crawling sensation when every piece that once seemed unrelated suddenly clicks together with terrifying perfection. The dizzy spells that keep returning on the exact evenings Haley takes extra care of him. The chaotic racing of his heart after a cup of tea that smells sweetly herbal. The burning heat spreading like cigarette ash down his throat and sinking into his stomach, leaving behind a filthy exhaustion he can't even name. Bill tried to turn it all into pressure, into age, into the cost of power just as he always has. Swallow it, cover it with meeting schedules, money, contracts. Midnight calls that make people listen out of fear. But this time his body refuses to play the ally. It betrays him day by day, hour by hour, and that betrayal drives Bill mad in the quietest way. Not the kind that screams, but the kind that watches everyone around him with eyes turning colder. As if the whole world is performing a play and he is the only one who never got the script. He hates the feeling of being cast as a victim. He hates having to rely on doctors. He hates down to the bone admitting that someone could manipulate him with an invisible drug. And above all, he hates a truth worse than any pain. The person closest to him, the woman he chose to stand beside him as a statement to all of Fairmont Crest, might be the one silently pushing him toward the grave. At first, the evidence is only instinct, and Bill hates instinct because it sounds too much like Donnie. Donnie always spoke from feeling, from scars, from that abandoned person intuition that can sense betrayal in the air. Bill used to smirk at it, dismiss it as weakness, insist that power doesn't run on emotion. Yet now, when the truth still has no shape, Bill finds himself standing on that fragile line between reason and paranoia. He begins to memorize every small detail. The moment Haley enters the room, the way she sets the cup down with a gentleness that feels too perfectly measured. The way her eyes flick to his wrist when he lifts the glass, as if she's counting the beats. Bill has always known how to read people through fear and ambition. He is used to spotting raw instinct in an opponent's gaze. But in Haley, he sees something else colder, quieter, patience. The patience of someone fishing for a very large catch and refusing to yank the line, because she believes the fish is already in the net. The turning point comes on a morning that should have been ordinary, when Bill wakes to hands shaking so badly he can't even fasten a button. Haley walks in carrying her loving routine, a warm glass of herbal water and a smile as soft as cream spread over a wound. Bill looks at that glass and feels his throat go dry. He drinks, like he always does, but this time, instead of swallowing along with his pride, he lets suspicion sit on his tongue like a blade. He tastes something faintly wrong, small, almost nothing, but enough to make his entire body go rigid. Haley turns her back at exactly the right moment, and Bill realizes it isn't accidental, it's a habit. She always turns away after giving him something. Not out of carelessness, but because she doesn't want to see his first reaction. Bill forces himself upright, forces himself into the bathroom, and vomits the drink as if he's expelling his own faith. In the mirror, he sees his pale face, his bloodshot eyes, and in that instant he understands. If he keeps playing the trusting husband, he will die without ever knowing why. The first real proof doesn't come from a lab, but from one small mistake on Haley's part. A tiny bottle in her handbag, unmarked, hidden carefully, just not carefully enough for a man like Bill. He has broken open deals no one thought could be cracked. A zipper and a lining won't stop him. When Bill lifts that bottle, his hands stop shaking. It's the terrifying calm of someone who has finally found an enemy to aim at. He doesn't know exactly what it is, but he knows it doesn't belong to a wife caring for her husband. And when he quietly delivers it to a doctor for discreet testing, the result comes back like a sentence. It isn't a stroke. It isn't stress. It isn't age. It's cumulative toxicity, the kind used to weaken a body slowly, to make death look natural, to give someone time to arrange a will, to sign documents. to shift power into the hands of the person sitting by the bedside with wet eyes and a voice full of sympathy. Bill reads the report and feels his entire life dragged down into mud. From that moment, every old memory gets hauled out and stained a different color. The day Bill chose Haley instead of Donnie. The nights he ignored Donnie while she was still speaking, because he was too busy proving he didn't need anyone to challenge him. The times he paraded Haley at his side in front of crowds like a trophy to prove he could abandon the past and still be admired. Bill hasn't just been poisoned with chemicals. He has been poisoned by his own pride. And that makes his rage more complicated than simple anger at Haley. It becomes fury at himself for being so easily seduced by a woman who knows exactly how to scratch the itch of power. He has two choices: confront her head-on and crush her mask in the living room, or stay silent and build a trap so airtight she can't escape. Bill knows women like Haley. When cornered, she won't cry for real, she calculate. A direct confrontation would hand her the opportunity to craft a story where Bill is delusional, where Bill is unraveling and searching for someone to blame. If he calls the police now, she might still slip through the legal cracks: lack of a documented pattern, lack of continuous physical evidence, lack of witnesses. And Bill understands something even crueler. The police don't punish what people suspect. They punish what people can prove. Bill cannot tolerate the image of Haley walking free while he becomes the man everyone whispers about: the husband who got cheated, poisoned, and then laughed at because it was his own fault. For Bill, humiliation is a toxin stronger than any drug. So he chooses a third option, cold and ugly in a way that suits him. He keeps playing the obedient victim. But in his mind, he has already built the stage where Haley will step forward and expose herself. Bill begins pretending to be weaker. He lets Haley believe the poison is working. He lets her grow confident enough to raise the dose or get careless. He creates gaps in his schedule, vanished phone calls, silences long enough for her to think he's losing control. He signs a few fake documents so she believes she's finally touching what she wants. Bill knows the most dangerous prey is the prey that can act. And Bill, even as poison chews through his cells, still has one thing no one can take: the predator's instinct of a man who has survived by strangling opponents at negotiation tables. But Haley isn't alone. Randy is the shadow that comes with her, like a filthy hand doing the thing she doesn't want to do herself. Bill doesn't need a confession. He watches the timing of Randy's appearances, the covert way he and Haley communicate with glances, the way Randy always angles himself near whatever can be controlled: medicine, documents, keys, cameras. Bill begins investigating Randy the way Bill investigates anyone, quietly, without mercy, with one goal: results. He digs up the money trails, the smear transfers, the private meetings, the numbers that only dial out at strange hours. And the more he uncovers, the more he feels both rage and a cold sting of fear. Randy may be loyal to Haley, but he's loyal to money more. Men like Randy don't die for love, they die for greed. That makes him dangerous and useful. Bill starts asking himself the hardest question: was he completely fooled, or did he sense it before and choose not to look? The brutal truth is that he had flashes of doubt, then crushed them, because he didn't want to admit he'd chosen wrong. He didn't want Donnie to be right. He didn't want the world to look at him and say Bill abandoned Donnie only to destroy himself. He wanted to win, even if winning meant lying to himself. And now that lie has come back and bitten him like a snake. The hardest part isn't catching Haley. It's deciding whether he needs Donnie in this war. If he brings Donnie in, he'll have to face her gaze, the gaze that is both furious and knowing, as if she predicted this ending long ago. Bill fears asking forgiveness, because asking forgiveness means admitting he isn't untouchable. Yet Bill also understands, if he doesn't involve Donnie, Haley could use Donnie as the perfect final card. A forged message, manufactured evidence, one ruthless pivot that turns Donnie into the mastermind enough to destroy Bill a second time. Haley's intelligence lives in that cruelty. She doesn't just want Bill dead. She wants him dead in isolation, with everyone convinced he deserved it. And so Bill does what he hates most. He goes to Donnie not to beg for love, but to negotiate survival. He doesn't arrive looking helpless. He arrives with an ego torn open, fury packed so tight his voice feels like a blade. Donnie looks at Bill and her anger ignites in the most Donnie way, not because she still loves him, but because she still hurts. Bill abandoned her like an old object. Now he returns with a horror story she had, in some form, already sensed. Inside Donnie, hatred and justice wrestle violently. Part of her wants Bill to pay for dismissing her, for choosing Haley, for building a world where Donnie is treated like the loser. But if Bill dies by poison, Donnie doesn't when she becomes a side character in Haley's victory story. Donnie hates Haley with a raw, instinctive disgust. She hates women who weaponize tears. He used love like a collar. And Donnie, even broken, refuses to let someone like that write the ending of her life. That conflict makes Donnie dangerous. She can save Bill, but she can also let him sink long enough to taste fear. Bill knows it, and he accepts it. He accepts that in this war, Donnie isn't his angel, she's a double-edged knife. If he wants her on his side, he has to give her something valuable, the truth. The truth that he's been poisoned, that he was foolish, that he chose someone easy to control instead of the woman who dared to resist him. Saying it feels like cutting a chunk of pride out of his own body. Yet for the first time in a long time, Bill can breathe. Not because he's forgiven, but because he has stopped lying. Meanwhile, Haley starts sensing something is wrong. Bill is weakening, but not in the way she expects. Some days he's too lucid, his eyes measuring her like an asset to be priced. Haley is used to controlling men through the role of savior, but Bill no longer needs saving. That terrifies her in a way she refuses to name. She tightens her grip, increases her presence, keeps Bill within sight, and that urgency makes her careless. Randy starts complaining about risk. He wants money, guarantees. Haley, in her anger, treats Randy like a tool and forgets tools can cut the hand that holds them. Randy watches Haley and, for the first time, a private plan sparks in his mind. If Haley gets arrested, he'll be the one made to take the fall. If Haley succeeds, he gets crumbs. So why not sell Haley or sell Bill or sell them both, as long as he escapes? Betrayal begins to sprout without any moral reason beyond survival. Bill observes it all like a man standing on the edge of a cliff. Every time Haley brings him a drink, nausea rises in him. But he still takes it, still performs, still lets her believe she's winning. He installs cameras, he keeps samples, he has the doctor document the progression. He builds a legal case thick enough that when the police finally step in, no one can dismiss it as just suspicion. At the same time, Bill is afraid he'll die before the trap shuts, afraid Haley will switch tactics and strike faster. Afraid the power he once believed was immortal cannot save a body being hollowed out from within. And that fear makes Bill more ruthless. He decides to bait her, a set of transfer papers, a weak signature of his, just enough for Haley to believe the finish line is close. Haley bites, she can't wait anymore. She wants the ending before Bill recovers or before Bill changes his mind. She tells Randy to prepare something stronger, something that will drop Bill fast, something that will bury all suspicion under a sudden stroke. But Randy, with betrayal burning bright in his own calculations, keeps a portion back. He wants leverage if everything collapses. In this game of treachery, everyone is holding a hidden card. Haley thinks she's controlling Randy. Randy thinks he's controlling Haley. Bill stands in the center, deciding when to make the whole thing explode. The last question is what ending Bill will choose, a direct confrontation with Haley to satisfy his rage, or silence while she hangs herself with her own greed. Bill understands confrontation offers immediate victory, but a trap is the kind of victory that lasts. And still, inside him there remains a weak human part, the part that wants to look Haley in the eyes and ask why. Why she can lie beside him at night and still pour poison into his cup. Why she can call it love. The most terrifying answer is that Haley may not need any reason beyond this. Bill is a ladder. On the night everything comes due, Bill sits in his office under low light, the air packed tight as if the house itself is holding its breath. Haley walks in with the familiar cup. Bill looks at it, then at her. In that moment he knows with absolute clarity, if he drinks, he may die. If he refuses, Haley will realize the trap is exposed. He reaches out, takes the cup, and in his head he hears Donnie like a cut. Does he want to live to punish her, or die to prove no one can control him? Bill raises the cup, offers a thin smile, and chooses an option neither Haley nor Randy is ready for, an option that is both a counterattack and his final declaration of war. And just as the liquid touches his lips, the doorbell rings sharply, dragging a third set of footsteps into the house, as if someone has arrived at the exact second to flip the board. And Bill suddenly understands that his trap may have been stolen by another hand right before it could close.